Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Chris Lovingood, and today's deep dive conversation is with Amanda Lamb. We're talking about the tragedy that happened over the weekend when an 11-year-old girl, Hailey Brooks, died after getting hit by a truck during Saturday's Raleigh Christmas parade. And just a note to you listeners, this conversation is being recorded Monday night. If there are any significant developments in the story overnight, we will provide links in the podcast episode show notes. So, Amanda, you were there Saturday. I saw you during the coverage. Tell me, how did this all unfold from your perspective?
Yeah, I was there, Chris. It was really ironic. Joe Fisher and Allie Ingersoll, who were two other reporters at WRAL, and I had gone for a run right before the parade. And then we'd met back out there. I had brought some members of my family and some friends. And so we were down at Campbell Law School, which is where WRAL was kind of staging for the parade. So we had Brian Schrader out there and Elizabeth Gardner. And all of a sudden, the only way I can describe it is the tone changed. You could almost feel it in the air, in the crowd. Something was wrong. So we started hearing bits and pieces that there may have been some type of an accident. And of course, Allie and Joe and I, all being reporters, we said, let's head in that direction and see, what we can do in terms of helping to cover it and see what was going on. So, this very happy event, all of a sudden, in just a few seconds, had really turned into a nightmare once we started to get more information. So we started moving down towards the intersection, which was Boylan and Hargett. And, as you're moving through the crowd again, you can sense the tension. The parade has stopped. People know something is wrong. And shortly after we got there, they had taped off the intersection, and we learned from people there that there had been some kind of an accident, that a child had been injured, and we saw the police chief there. And so as soon as we saw the police chief, Estella Patterson, we knew, this is a very serious situation for the police chief to come out. They had called off the parade, and it was very early in the parade. I believe it was just about 10:15. And we saw this truck, a white pickup truck, with a CC and Company Dance Complex logo. Actually, there were two floats, but this one was the one they were really focusing on in the road in front of us. So, again, it was a very unfolding scene, and we were just trying to figure out what was going on.
And, I saw the videos that Joe Fisher put online, and we saw the police chief there. We saw the crowd that was there, and you said you arrived, and the crowd, was it in a panic when you got there, or people, what specifically were they telling you they saw?
Yeah, I think it was confusion at first. And, when you are covering an unfolding news story, the most important thing is to try and get information as quickly as possible, because people are scattering. And that's what was happening. I mean, people were leaving the parade area because this was very upsetting. And so we started talking to people who had witnessed this from all different angles. And basically what they told us, and the videos bear this out, because we later got a lot of videos that were posted online from people who were there, was that this pickup truck pulling this float from the dance company started to kind of speed up in front of the other float, and it started to kind of veer into the crowd of dancers. And he was blowing his horn. He could be heard saying his brakes had failed and that he couldn't stop. Immediately, the adults that were chaperoning this group of dancers pushed them out of the way, got them out of the way, as many of them as they possibly could. And unfortunately, 11-year-old Hailey Brooks was not, she was in the road. She wasn't able to get out of the way, and she was struck by the truck and the float. And it's really amazing when you see how many people were out there, and you think about the fact that so many more people could have been hit, injured, and killed. They did stop that truck with their hands.
I saw the video. There's a bunch of people there physically stopping that truck.
I'm told the truck was in neutral, and that a bunch of men ran into the road, including a Raleigh police officer, and they were able to stop it. We interviewed a witness named Worth Creech, who was there with his 12-year-old son, and he counts this as the most tragic thing he's ever witnessed in his life. And he said his first instinct was to run after the truck, like all of these other men did, and got in the road and stopped it. And then he said he got there, it was stopped. So then he turned around and went back to where Hailey Brooks was. And he said there were already people around her trying to help her. There was nothing he could do. But again, he's standing there with his 12-year-old son. And he just said there weren't words. It was so heartbreaking.
It was supposed to be just a fun event. We had our talent out there, talking about, it's fun and all a good time. And then, like you said, there was that shift in atmosphere. And I remember I got the news alert. I turned on. I see you. I see other people who are there reporting. And it was just such a significantly different atmosphere from what we thought it was going to be. You touched on this a little bit, but as for the dance troupe, I mean, what was happening with them at this morning? Were they kind of scattering? Were they running?
Right. So there was a church just about a block away from where this happened, which was Hillier Memorial First Christian. And so they were gathering the parents and the kids in that parking lot. And one of the things that's important to note, I was a dance mom for more than a decade, and my daughter danced in this parade for 11 years. In fact, she was with me Saturday. It was her first time. She's a college student witnessing the parade. So this was really emotional for her as well, just, imagining how close a dance family is and for something like this to happen. But the parents often get at the end of the route. They wait for their kids. They don't follow along because the sidewalks are so crowded. So a lot of these parents were coming from as far as Memorial Auditorium, which is like a mile away. And they were running up the sidewalks, crying, panicking. They didn't know what was going on. I actually had one mother come up and just grab me by both arms. She thought I was one of the dance moms, and she screamed with tears coming down her face, "Where are they? Where are they?" So in terms of the parents of these kids, it was a lot of panic. And then once they reunited with their kids at the church, it was just consoling, just a lot of tears, hugging, people consoling one another.
And obviously, we do want to hear a little bit more about Hailey Brooks. We also want to hear about the suspect in this, Landon Glass. But after the break, we will go to there and how we go forward in terms of trying to understand how this tragedy happened. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with Amanda Lamb about the tragedy at last weekend's Raleigh Christmas Parade. So we have now learned the identity of that girl, Hailey Brooks. So what do we know so far about her? We've seen the videos of the memorial that's out there, the different things that people are leaving for her. What do you know, Amanda?
Right. Well, she had just turned 11 in November. She's the oldest of 3 siblings. She was a student at Cardinal Charter School. And she was a longtime dancer. And I mentioned this before, but dance families, I mean, they really are like families. And she loved dancing. She loved her dance family. It's heartbreaking to imagine kind of the ripple effect this has had on so many people. And, she was just a regular little girl. She could have been anybody's little girl, the oldest of 3 siblings. And just, out there having a great time, just like so many people that day. And I think when we all put ourselves in those shoes, it really, especially as a parent, it's just really hard to wrap your head around.
I happened to be out somewhere when this happened, and someone was talking about it, and I mentioned, hey, I actually work in the news station, and she said, oh, I know one of the moms who was over there, and she said they were just in shock, that something like this happened, especially, again, this was supposed to be a very fun and happy time, and then the fact that this kind of came out of nowhere, it's like, well, again, trying to get to those answers of what happened here. And in regards to that, talk a little bit about what we've learned about Landon Glass. There's a lot of information that we've received from that, but still some questions we have.
Absolutely. So 20-year-old Landon Christopher Glass is from Lynchburg, Virginia. Right after this, shortly after this, he was charged with several criminal violations, including misdemeanor death by motor vehicle, careless and reckless driving, unsafe movement, improper equipment, and carrying a firearm, which you are not allowed to do in a parade. To be very clear, this is considered by everyone that we have spoken to be an accident, to be a tragic accident. There was nothing intentional here. But even accidents have consequences. And so that's kind of where we are right now. He was released on bond. He is due back in court on January 26th. And we did send a crew to Virginia, and they were not able. The family says they're not giving a statement at this time.
Yeah, I know Sarah Kruger went there and tried to dig a little bit more into this. And I think that one of the biggest questions is how we heard, as you said, the witnesses say that he said the truck wasn't stopping. And I think we have some questions about how that may have happened. I think one of the things we also learned was that, he had the 4 tickets for failure to have that vehicle inspected. Now, it's not quite sure exactly if the truck that he had was a part of those failures. We're not sure if those two are connected, but I think that's critical to mention here because as a reporter, we have to ask, could that have been spotted before entering into this parade?
Absolutely. And that is what Cullen Browder was working on, looking at those violations. No criminal record here, but a lot of violations involving his vehicle. You mentioned there had been 4 violations for not having an inspection on the vehicle. That the most recent one was October 30th. There were also violations for improper equipment, speeding, and, tint violations. I mean, again, on the surface, these don't sound very serious, but we need to learn more about whether or not they had any connection to the failure of the vehicle. He does list on some of his social media that he works on vehicles. He has lots of pictures of this particular truck on his social media. And we do also understand, I really want to point this out, that he was a former dancer and that the people I've spoken with said he was a really nice guy, that he and his family were really involved in the dance school and did a lot of volunteering with the dance school. So I think there has to be some grace given to everybody in this situation who is impacted. Another person that I talked to today that I think kind of plays into all of what we're looking at right now was from a float company. So he provides 37 floats, or provided 37 floats for this parade. It was the Triangle Float Company. His float was not the float involved in this accident. Mm-hmm. So I want to be clear about that. The floats all come under the auspices of the event coordinator, which is Shop Local Raleigh. They're in charge of the event. They're in charge of making sure everybody has, the proper inspections, the proper licenses. And so it really comes down to it's their responsibility. But what I was told by Mark Harris, who runs the Triangle Float Company, is that he has chosen to only use his drivers and his vehicles to pull his floats. Other companies, and in this situation, this is what occurred, will say, hey, if you have somebody that wants to pull our float, you may. And so in this case, it was a private float with a private driver who was affiliated with the school. So it's a very gray area in terms of, how do we look at this? I will say Mark Harris, the owner of the Triangle Float Company, said he doesn't believe there's a quick fix to this. He doesn't believe that more regulations, more rules could prevent something that's clearly a tragic accident. And he was the one who said, it really, when you look at this video, it's such a miracle that other people weren't killed and that we really need to be supporting each other at this time.
Well, and I think, there's obviously we have a lot of questions, but we're not going to get those answers until police continue to investigate, especially, hey, was there actually something wrong with this truck? How long has it been known that that truck had that issue? Is this something he could have spotted? Had he had it inspected? Was it inspected? There's just so many different questions with this, especially with it happened over the weekend that we have. And I know, obviously, you were out there. This is something that you have been on since it happened. Is there one big question that you have for this whole thing that you just want to get answered to help move this forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now what I would say is maybe it's the time to focus more on bringing the community together and helping heal some of the wounds. I mean, when you think about this, we have a family mourning the loss of a child, which is unimaginable. We have a dance family mourning the loss of this little girl. We have a young man whose life is forever changed and his family's life. We have a community who witnessed something horrible. I mean, Mark Harris talked about, he said the reason he got into this business, it's a family business, is to create joy. And that, nobody should be sad at a parade. Worth Creech talked about he'll never take his son to another parade after this because it was so devastating. So I think we have a lot of healing to do. But after the healing, which, is endless, obviously, in a situation like this, I think there should be questions asked about, how do we make decisions about what vehicles are in these parades and who is driving them, and are they the right vehicles, are they the right drivers, and are they capable? And at the end of the day, the people that need to be answering those questions are the people in charge. The people who run the event, the people who are putting these groups in the parades and making really good decisions about safety.
And again, this is just something that just has rocked this community. It's something that everyone's trying to grapple with right now. But hopefully we can get some answers in the coming future. Amanda, thank you so much for your coverage. This is such a difficult story. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can also listen to entire WRAL newscasts in podcast form and find WRAL newscasts in your podcast app. The feed is updated with new newscasts multiple times per day.